Good morning. All these people and not one person said good morning back. There we go. There we go. The hour of convening has arrived, and the Senate will now come to order. This time, I would ask that all unauthorized persons exit this beautiful chamber. It's my honor once again today, for the 6th legislative day, to recognize the distinguished chairman, Rules Chairman from Chickamauga.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is a beautiful day and a crisp day, and around the world there wasn't a lot of outstanding stuff, except back in 1881, the Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell formed the original telephone company. Now, if he only knew today exactly what he accomplished, he may have jumped over a cliff up my district. But there's more technology in that phone than went to the moon in 1969. The journal's been read to be. God, let me start again.
It's a little early to be stumbling like that.
I don't understand. I just had a few drinks this morning, is all. Of orange juice. The journal's been read and found to be correct, Mr. President.
Is there objection to dispensing of the reading of the journal? The chair hears none, and the reading of the journal is dispensed with. The chair recognizes the pro tem.
Come in, Tokyo. Come in, Tokyo. Oh. Mr. President, I move for reconsideration of Senate Resolutions 363.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read the caption of Senate Resolution 363?
Senate Resolution 363, a resolution by Senator Miller of the 49th and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the State of Georgia so as to clarify that only citizens of the United States shall have the right to vote in elections in this state, to provide for related matters, to provide for the submission of this amendment for ratification or rejection, and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
The pro tem has moved that the Senate reconsider its actions in failing to adopt Senate Resolution 363. Is there objection? The chair hears none. Senate Resolution 363 is reconsidered and will. Is there objection? There is objection. Would the pro tem like to speak to his motion?
Are aware of the measure, and I will waive.
He is waived. Would the objection like to speak? The waives. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the motion for reconsideration? The chair sees none. The pro tem has moved that the Senate reconsider its actions in failing to adopt Senate Resolution 363. All those in favor of reconsideration stand and be counted. Reverse to the nays. For what purpose does the minority leader rise?
I ask for yeas and nays.
That requires at least five members. All those in favor of going to the board, raise your hand. Stand, rise, and be counted. We have reached 5. All those in favor of the motion to reconsider Senate Resolution 363 will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine.
It won't go off. I think. I guess they have to clear it.
On the motion, the yeas are 33, the nays are 18, and the motion has prevailed. Senate Resolution 363 will be placed on the general calendar. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills and resolutions, please introduce them or bring them to the secretary's desk at this time. For what purpose is the senator from? First reading of Senate bills and resolutions, Mr. Secretary, please, from the Senate.
House Bill 876. Senate Bill 323 by Senators Miller of the 49th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 48 of the OCGA relating to revenue and taxation so as to repeal the state income tax in its entirety.
Finance.
Senate Bill 325 by Senators Miller of the 49th and others, a bill entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the OCGA relating to elections and primaries generally so as to remove provisions relating. Senate Bill 327 by Senators Miller of the 49th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to ad valorem taxation of
Education
property.
and youth.
Senate Bill 349 by Senators Dugan of the 30th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act amending, revising, superseding, and consolidating the laws pertaining to the Board of Commissioners of Carroll County.
State and local government.
Senate Bill 350 by Senators Albers of the 56th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the OCGA relating to elections and primaries generally so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by local legislation.
Ethics.
Senate Bill 351 by Senators Thompson of the 14th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 31 of the OCGA relating to health so as to extensively revise informed
Health and
consent.
Human Services.
Senate Bill 352 by Senators Thompson of the 14th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to general provisions of professions and businesses so as to provide for the-
Regulated industries.
Senate Bill 353 by Senators Thompson of the 14th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 17 and Chapter 5 of Title 40 of the OCGA relating to the criminal procedure and driver's licenses,
Public
respectively.
safety.
Senate Bill 354 by Senators Rhett of the 33rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 36 of Title 36 of the OCGA relating to annexation pursuant to application by 100.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 355 by Senators Rhett of the 33rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 5 of Chapter 5 of Title 40 of the OCGA relating to identification cards for persons without
Public
driver's
safety.
licenses. Senate Bill 356 by Senators Ginn of the 47th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 46241 relating to distracted driving restrictions on operation of
Public
wireless.
safety.
Senate Bill 357 by Senators Kirkpatrick of the 32nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 22295 of the OCGA relating to military student transfers.
Education and youth.
Senate Bill 358 by Senators Kirkpatrick of the 32nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 3555 of the OCGA relating to Public Safety Training Center, available for use by
Public
any-
safety.
Senate Bill 359 by Senators Albers of the 56th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 15 of the OCGA relating to general provisions concerning courts so as to require a biennial report of
Judiciary.
recommendation. Senate Bill 360 by Senators McNeil of the 3rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 165-102 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated. relating
Judiciary.
to Senate Bill 361 by Senators Walker III of the 20th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to income taxes so as to enact the Law Enforcement Strategic Support Act to provide for tax credits for certain contributions made by taxpayers to certain
Finance.
local law. Senate Bill 362 by Senators Goodman of the 8th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to create the Lanier County Building Authority, approved July 29, 2020, so as to revise the definition of project.
State and local government.
Senate Bill 363 by Senators Tillery of the 19th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 15 of Chapter 1 of Title 10 of the OCGA, relating to Fair Business Practices Act of 1975.
Agriculture and consumer affairs.
Senate Bill 364 by Senators Tillery of the 19th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 2 of Title 46 of the OCGA relating to general provisions relative to phone service, so as to provide for class action suits and damages against certain persons for
Agriculture
violating.
and Consumer Affairs.
Senate Bill 365 by Senators Dugan of the 30th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act amending, revising, superseding, and consolidating the laws pertaining to the Board of Commissioners of Carroll County.
State and local government.
Senate Bill 366 of Senators Merritt of the 9th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act creating the Board of Commissioners of Gwinnett County, approved January 31st, 1968, as amended, particularly by an act
State and local government general.
Senate Bill 367 by Senator Gooch of the 51st, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to provide for the election of the members of Lumpkin County Board of Education, approved April 12th, 1982, as amended particularly by an act approved September 21st.
State and local government.
Senate Bill 368 by Senator Gooch of the 51st, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to provide for the method of election of the members of the Board of Education of White County, approved May 13th.
State and local government.
Senate Bill 369 by Senators Dixon of the 45th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act relating to education districts for the election of members of the Board of Education.
State and local government general.
Senate Resolution 360 by Senators Miller of the 49th and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to provide that each resident of a school district shall be entitled to claim an ad valorem tax exemption for the assessed value of the resident's homestead for school district
Education.
taxes. Senate Resolution 376 by Senators Thompson of the 14th and others, a resolution creating the Senate Occupational Licensing Study Committee and for other purposes.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 383 by Senators Kirkpatrick of the 32nd and others, a resolution creating the Senate Study Committee of the Restoration of Veterans Nursing Facilities and for other purposes.
Rules.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, first reading of House bills and resolutions, please.
House Bill 876 by Representatives England of the 116th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act providing authority for members of the Board of Education of Barrow County, approved
State and
April
local
10th.
government.
House Bill 877 by Representatives England of the 116th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act recreating and establishing the Board of Commissioners of Barrow County, approved April 2nd,
State and local government.
House Bill 878 by Representatives Burnow of the 77th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act creating the State Court of Clayton County, approved January 28th.
State and local government.
House Bill 879 by Representatives Burnow of the 77th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act establishing a civil service system for the employees of Clayton County, approved March 29th, 1994.
State and local government.
House Bill 880 by Representatives Nix of the 69th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act providing for the reconstitution of the Board of Education of Troup County.
State and local government.
House Bill 882 by Representatives Williamson of the 115th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act providing for districts for the election of the Board of Education of Walton County, approved April 4th, 1968, as amended.
State and local government.
House Bill 883 by Representatives Cameron of the 1st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to authorize the governing authority of the city of Rossville to levy an excise tax pursuant to
State and local government.
House Bill 897 by Representative Stevens of the 164th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act providing for the education election.
State and local government.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read reports of standing committees?
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 332 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 17th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Economic Development and Tourism has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 342 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Thompson of the 14th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
It's now time for our morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd.
Say with unanimous consent that I have no one to excuse today.
I'm going to give you a minute to reconsider. We've been through this drill before. Is everybody here? Are there any motions to excuse? Mark this in the journal. Oh, chair recognizes the majority whip.
Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 1st District.
Without objection, the senator from the 1st is excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 43rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 26th.
Without objection, the senator from the 26th is excused. Are there any additional motions to excuse? Secretary will call the roll. Senators, signify your presence by voting the yea switch. The secretary will unlock the machine. It's now time for a morning devotional. All senators, please take your seats and cease all audible conversations. And would ask that our doorkeepers secure the chamber at this time. I'd like to recognize my good friend, the senator from the 2nd, to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance today and to introduce to us our chaplain of the day.
Please rise for our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now our Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and the principles which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation. Lieutenant Governor Duncan, members of the Senate, I present to you Bishop Thomas Lewis Brown, Sr. He was elected the 54th Bishop of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church on June 28, 2006, in Memphis, Tennessee. His elementary and secondary education was attained at Walker High School in Oakland, Mississippi, from which he graduated valedictorian from his high school class. He attended Northwest Junior College in Mississippi and earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from University of Mississippi in 1993. His education continued with the Phillips School of Theological Center at the Interdenominational Theological Center in Atlanta, Georgia, from which he earned a Master of Divinity degree with honors in 1976. Bishop Brown also earned with honors a Doctor of Theological degree from the International Theological Center in cooperation with the Candler School of Theological Center and Emory University and Columbia Seminary in 1991. The ministry of Bishop Brown Sr. began his junior year at Ole Miss, where he answered the call of Jesus. He was an organizer. He was an organizing pastor of the Good News Community Church in Lithonia, Georgia, from 1990 from 2006. Bishop Brown served with distinction as the 6th President Dean of the Phillips School of Ministry during the International Theological Center, and he's been a leader throughout Georgia. This bishop, the 54th bishop of the CME Church, is currently chair-elect of Payne College Trustee Board. He also serves as adjunct professor of the CME History and Policy, as well as pastoral care at the International Theological Center. He's a lecturer at the Candler School of Theological Center and Columbia Theological Seminar and Princeton Theological Center, and a well-known preacher at the Church Administration and Management, now known as the Conference of National Black Churches. Moreover, Bishop Brown has represented the CME Church exceptionally well and has been a delegate to the General Conference of the CME Church from 1978 to 2006. He was a delegate to the World Ministry Conference in Kenya, in Brazil, and South Africa. His travels also include Nigeria, West Africa. He's a founding member of the Concerned Black Clergy in Atlanta, an advocate for the homeless and persons on death row, a civil rights leader. But let me tell you in short what my friend Bishop Brown is known for. First, he loves God. Secondly, love his family. He is a father, a husband, a grandfather of 6. My friend Bishop Brown is known as a Christian professor, a civic leader, a man of God, a delivery of Christ's message, and a disciple of Jesus. I present to you a man that walks with Jesus, Bishop Thomas Brown.
To our esteemed President, and certainly to Senator Jackson, my friend and colleague on the trustee board of the Payne College, to the distinguished members of this House, or this Senate rather, all of you who are assembled here today, I'm honored to have this privilege. As I stand here today, I have a brief memory of some 34 years or so when, thanks to the late Senator Horace Tate, whose daughter is seated among you, invited me to share a word when I had an afro. That's been a few seasons ago. But thank you for this privilege to come to share with you, and certainly I commend each of you for not only having been elected by your constituents, but for the tremendous challenges you have together to serve the interests of your own constituents, but also of the good people of Georgia. So I praise God for you, and thank you for this privilege. Let us pray. Almighty God, you who have been our help in ages past, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home, we gather in these sacred quarters not only to legislate, but to also call on your name, because we know that given our human ingenuities, we can do a lot of things. But without you, our efforts eventually failed. So we invoke your presence in this place, in each of our lives, that you would guide us this day and every day you choose to allow us to live. It is in the name of the Christ we pray and give you thanks. Amen. I want to, for the few minutes I have, offer you a rather interesting, I trust, subject. I want to talk about an absurd faith for a difficult time. An absurd faith for a difficult time. Those of you who are Bible readers know well the story as told in the book of Daniel, chapter 3, about 3 Hebrew boys or men who were under the leadership and the rule of King Nebuchadnezzar, and their response to the king's edict. It is from that text, and I invite you to read it if you have not read it in some time, to read it at some juncture along the way. It was in 1999 that a book authored by Edward Freeman was published posthumously entitled Leadership in the Age of a Quick Fix, a Failure of Nerve. In this book, Freeman contends that one of the great challenges leadership has in these ages is that we are often sabotaged. Leaders who seek to progress, who seek to do that which is right, are often sabotaged, not by outside forces, but often by our own failure of nerve. And so, suspicious of our nerve and our paranoia, Freeman argues that we come up with quick fixes that somehow do not last long. The story of these 3 Hebrew men in resistance to King Nebuchadnezzar, in my opinion, is indeed something of an absurd response to a king's edict. It does seem wildly unreasonable, ludicrous, nonsensical, insane, perhaps some would call crazy. The actions of these men was not rational or intelligible, given the power of this king and given their being subjects to the king. But yet, one might also reason that these men had reason for doubt because they had recently been elevated, given middle management, if you will, positions in the king's kingdom. And so they had an out. But the king also was at the height of his rule. And as often is the case with people with great power and with those who have no power, that extremes can cause us to do some unusual and weird things. So the king has concocted an image, a golden image, that he has now as a statue, and requiring all of his subjects to bow down to this golden statue. Everyone does so, with the exception of 3 Hebrew men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, their enslaved names. And they said to the king, "Your threat means nothing to us. If you throw us in the fire, the God we serve can rescue us from your roaring furnace and anything else you might cook up, O king. But even if not, even if God doesn't, it wouldn't make a bit of a difference, O king. We still wouldn't serve your gods or worship the golden statue you set up." And so, my brothers and sisters, I offer this story because in the times in which we live, we need leaders who indeed have nerve to serve, and men and women who are not ashamed to serve, especially those of us in our capacities. Quickly then, there are 3 things that these leaders, these 3 men offered that I suggest are helpful. One is, I think that they were able to hold their own because they knew who they were. They had a clear sense of their identity. They understood that their identity transcended their physical, social, mental characteristics, even their ethnicity, their gender, their class and economic status, or even social sexual orientation. Their identity was rooted in their belief and their faith in their God. And so they were able to say, because of our God, we will stand our ground. Secondly, I believe they were able to hold their own because of a rare ideal. A rare ideal. They understood that there are some things that are just more suitable for our people. Some things are more reasonable for the needs of people. And so they would not narrow themselves to the king's status quo. They decided, we live and serve a God whose ideal includes all people, and therefore we stand in solidarity with them. We are all recipients of ideals. This great nation is built on a constitution that gives a great ideal statement to all of us. And we also stand on the Declaration of Independence that gives us these great words. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all persons are created equal, that all are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yes, all of these are great ideals, but we have lived long enough to know that ideals are often never measured up to. And so in many ways, we live in an age filled with cynicism, and because of cynicism, we lack the nerve to do the right things sometimes. Benjamin Mays put it this way at Morehouse School, suggested that low aim is our problem. The third thing that I think these men possess, that I think I commend to you, is that they had an imagination. James Weldon Johnson called it in his vernacular turpentine imagination. An imagination that could sense and see and hear what God was saying and doing. In our African American tradition, religious tradition, we call it a sanctified imagination. I hope many of you are familiar with sanctification. That sense in which one can hear the whispering of God's word in every situation. A spiritual eye that is able to see beyond the plane of mortal humanity. Some of us remember the lyrics of the 1971 song by The Temptations. Most of you are too young for that. But you do remember, some of you, I'm sure you've heard the words, just my imagination running away with me. Oh, what a bitter, sweet tale. This song talks about the fantasies of a woman he likes, dreaming about getting married and raising two or three children with her in a cozy little house in the countryside. Sadly, however, the lyrics of the song ends with this confession: she doesn't even know me. The men in our text were not chasing a fantasy. Their minds were transformed and renewed because they knew a God whom they served, who was able to save them. And yet, if this God chose not to save them, they were willing to stand with that God. So, brothers and sisters, as I close, I would suggest in times like these, we need faith in that God. In fact, I offer an absurd faith that declares that this God is able in trouble to turn trouble into triumph, defeat into victory. This God is able to bring us through the ages, to give us hope in despair, shelter from the stormy blast, and indeed promises us an eternal home. And so, brothers and sisters, we need this kind of faith for times like these. These men, the three Hebrew men, present to us a prototype of faith. But I suggest to you that there's one who has an anti-type of faith. In my tradition, I call him Jesus of Nazareth. The men in the text were rescued, you recall, miraculously from the burning fiery furnace, or even while they were in the fire. But I know someone who was not rescued, who died on the cross, was not rescued. Even when others spat on him and accused him and ridiculed him, he died. And died he did, and was buried in a borrowed tomb. He's an anti-type faith. And yet the story is that this same one who died 3 days later, was raised victorious and triumphant. So my prayer for us today, as I take my seat, is found in the old hymn of the church. Oh, for faith that will not shrink, though pressed by every foe, that will not tremble in the brink of earthly woe, that will not murmur nor complain beneath the chastening rod, but in the hour of grief or pain will lean upon its God. Lord, give us such a faith as this, and then whatever may come, I'll taste even here the hallowed bliss of an eternal home. Amen.
Senate will come back to order. Are there any unanimous consents? The chair sees none. Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? The chair sees none. You have a consent calendar of privilege resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar?
She's trying to get to her desk.
Absolutely. Chair recognizes the senator from the 6th for a point of personal privilege. She was having a technology issue.
And Senator Tippins as well.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just yesterday, a baby, just 6 months old, was shot and killed in northwest Atlanta, victim of crossfire between two adults. 6 months old, right? And against this backdrop, as y'all know, the governor has repeated that his main priority this session was to pass what has been branded as constitutional carry. Now, I've had a lot of constituents ask me exactly what this is, right? Like, what is constitutional carry? Well, let's start with the current state of Georgia law. You know, not surprisingly, Georgia has some of the weakest laws when it comes to safe gun ownership in the country. We have a very strong gun culture. Y'all know that. If you're 18 and you're not a felon, you can buy a gun, effectively. And there's really only one restriction, and that applies to concealed carry. That applies to the carrying of a concealed weapon, which is basically when a person wants to carry a gun around on them, concealed, under their clothing or in a car. And if you want to carry a concealed weapon, all you got to do is apply for a concealed carry permit. It's pretty straightforward. You fill out an application, and if you meet certain requirements, then you get the permit. Now, this process is intended to keep certain people from being able to carry around a concealed weapon, and for good reason. And those people include fugitives from justice, those with pending criminal charges involving a serious crime, a felony, those recently released from a mental hospital, those deemed incompetent to stand trial, and those that have been found not guilty of a crime by reason of insanity. That's what the process does, right? You get fingerprinted, you have a criminal history records background check, that's it. And then you can hide whatever heat you're packing in the peach state. That's it. So if Georgia law is so weak, what in the world does constitutional carry even mean then? Well, you know that process that I just talked about that just tries to keep felons, fugitives from justice, folks recently released from a mental hospital, people found to be mentally incompetent to stand trial, folks found not guilty by reason of insanity for a crime they've committed. Well, it basically does away with that process. That's it. That's all constitutional carry does. So, but let me say this, there is nothing in the Constitution that says someone who's a fugitive from justice should have a right to carry around a concealed weapon. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that a recent releasee from a mental hospital has a right to carry around a concealed weapon. There's nothing that says someone that has been adjudicated incompetent to even stand trial has a right to carry around a concealed weapon. It isn't in the Constitution, and it's not constitutional at all. But I'll tell you what is mandated by Georgia's Constitution. Specifically, government is instituted for the protection, security, and benefit for the people. That is our constitutional mandate, and we aren't coming anywhere close to living up to it. I am a firm believer and protector of the constitutional rights of citizens in this state, in this country. But this isn't it. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the Rules Chairman for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I'm going to read to you a little bit about the Georgia Constitution. Constitution of the State of Georgia, Article 1, Bill of Rights. Section 2, Origin and Structure of Government. Paragraph 2, Object of Government. The people of this state have the inherent right of the regulation of their internal government. The government is institutional for the protection, security, and benefit of the people. And at all times, they have the right to alter, reform, and the same whenever the public good may require it. Our Constitution allows people to make their own decision. And when they live in a community that is unsafe, that has no good representation at the local level, that all they want to be is safe. That comes from the people of Buckhead City Project. So I would like to tell you that those people have the right to vote, to be safe. Now, in this body, I've heard suppression of the vote. Well, is this not suppression of the vote, that we don't give them the vote? So I ask you, let them vote. Let them vote. Let them vote. Mr. President, I say let them vote. Thank you. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 3rd for a point of personal privilege.
Today is a special day for us in District 3 and the Capitol. Captain Thornell King, or known by his friends as TK, has a birthday today. He's been the Georgia State Trooper for 27 years and is now serving Major and Director of the Capitol. The Capitol Police. His giving spirit and big heart is what he's best known for. And in McIntosh County, he is the first citizen to receive a key to the city of Darien in recognition of his community service. As you see him today, please tell him happy birthday.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 4th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I arrived today to recognize a great gentleman from our community that passed away last Thursday. He was also in my Sunday school class, and a lot of times I would sit with him and his wife in church when my wife was in the choir, and then she came down. We sat with us together. Mr. Jimmy Blitz. Mr. Jimmy was born in 1933. He spent his early years in Savannah and eventually moved to Statesboro in 1943 to farm Blitz Place Farms. Mr. Jimmy graduated from Statesboro High School in 1949 and entered the University of Georgia, get this, at the age of 15. Pretty impressive. He graduated with honors from University of Georgia College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences with a degree in animal husbandry and agri-science. Upon graduation, he entered the U.S. Army as a marksman. After being honorably discharged as a second lieutenant from the Army, he moved back to Statesboro to begin farming with his father as a farmer and cattleman. In 1958, he married the love of his life, Miss Patricia Brandon, and raised 3 daughters and 1 son at Blitz Place Farms in Bullock County. He was a member and deacon of First Baptist Church, Statesboro, where he led a class for teenage boys and educated them on Jesus. Mr. Jimmy owned and operated Blitz Place Farms, a 5-generation diversified farm in Bullock County, which was founded in 1896. He worked the farm with his father and brother. His son Matt joined the farm in 1988, and then a tremendous thrill to Mr. Jimmy, his grandson Matthew joined the farm in 2016. Mr. Jimmy farmed with 275 head of brood cows, and then he later, based in early years, he also produced tobacco, wheat, oats, rye, bahia grass, peanuts, cotton, corn, soybeans, and timber. Mr. Jimmy has spent most of his life helping to advance the agriculture industry, including serving as president of Georgia Crop Improvement Association, spending 12 years on the executive board of Georgia Peanut Commission, including national research, and serving 6 years on the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences Advisory Council. Mr. Jimmy Blitz, those of you who know him, he was a real, what I would call a true Southern gentleman. Back home, he served on many community boards, including director of First Bullet Bank, director of Statesboro Rotary Club, a member of East Georgia Hospital Board of Trustees, and a deacon at First Baptist Church, as I mentioned earlier. Mr. Jimmy also was instrumental in starting Bullock Academy, a private school in Statesboro, where his children and grandchildren were educated. Among the many honors he has received are the 1963 Georgia Outstanding Young Farmer Award, 1989 Stocker Finisher of the Year from Georgia Cattlemen's Association, 1999 Hayden Rogers Distinguished Agronomic Service Award from the CAES, which is the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, 1992 Man of the Year from Georgia Soil and Water Conservation, 2014 Outstanding Georgia Peanut Farmer of the Year, and 2016 UGA Certificate of Excellence. In 2019, the CAES Alumni Association of East Georgia Chapter honored Mr. Jimmy for his service, and most recently, Mr. Jimmy was honored to receive a UGA College of Agriculture and Environmental Science Alumni Association Award. He was survived by his lovely wife, Miss Patricia, 64 years, his children and their spouses, Susan and Derek Bozeman, Joe Helen and Bubba Probst, Matt and Betsy Blitz, and Patricia Harris, as well as 12 grandchildren and one great-granddaughter, and now got another one on the way. You can tell I've got a tremendous amount of respect for Mr. Jimmy Blitz. As I said, he was a true Southern gentleman, and he was a man to God. Thank you, sir. I yield the will.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 37th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to welcome to the Senate and the House today our Doctor of the Day, Dr. James Tallman. He's from Cobb County, lives in Marietta, and has for a good while. He's served several times as Doctor of the Day in the past since I've been in the Senate. Dr. Tallman is past president of the Cobb County Medical Society. He received the middle name Mason as his father was a state representative from Mason County, West Virginia. He's practiced medicine in Georgia for over 48 years as a general practitioner, emergency room physician, and later as a diagnostic and interventional radiologist. He's a Vietnam-era Navy veteran protecting South Georgia from invasion while he was stationed at the Marine Corps Supply Center in Albany, Georgia. He greatly appreciates the medical education that the state of Georgia gave him at the Medical College of Georgia at Emory University. In addition to living in Marietta and Albany, he has lived in Augusta, Oxford, Atlanta, Decatur, and Athens, and has liked them all. But he will tell you quickly, Marietta is the best place in Georgia to live. Thank you very much. I hope y'all welcome Dr. Tallman today. I hope you don't need his services.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 36th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'll take a minute of your time. We've heard a lot of locality names thrown around up here on the floor this year in our brief time that we've gathered as the Senate in the 2022. Lincoln County, Buckhead City, and the list goes on. But we've been advised from this very well and lectured that we should stay out of the affairs of localities. We should have nothing to say about the goings-on in any particular geographic political subdivision of the state. On its face, that's a little bit difficult to understand since we have entire and complex processes for addressing the issues on the local level. Cities, counties, neighborhoods. We've been involved in Henry County. Y'all remember that great debate? I sure do. Eagles Landing, Stockbridge. An effort that was defeated by the people who live in that county. After up here we engaged in a process that would have damaged the economy, would have damaged Stockbridge. And now we're engaging. We've been advised by some of these same folks who just are despairing over the fact that we want to discuss what's happening with the voter access in Lincoln County. But yet they're full-throatedly supporting a secession movement to break apart our capital city and threaten the physical health of the city, the county, and the state in so doing. Now, that's just a flat-up contradiction. And I wanted to point it out as this debate has gone forward about what's divisive and what is not. And actually, the citizens in Lincoln County, Lincoln is one of 6 counties that took it in their hands to reconstitute their election boards. Helen Butler may be a name familiar to some of you. She is an esteemed leader who's received national recognition for her efforts in voter registration and voter turnout and standing up for full civic engagement and opening the doors for all people to have access to the ballot. Those, of course, that are citizens. Helen Butler's been thrown off of her election board in Morgan County, where she has served honorably for years. And that's been done by machinations on the local level that are partisan and party-led. So we're going to talk about those things when we see them happening, and yet might get to national news because Georgia's being looked at across the country. We are the state that's passed SB 202 that limits access to drop boxes, for the Lord's sake, for your ballot. So we're going to be looked at, and so when things happen on voting issues in Georgia, don't be surprised when it's in the national news, and don't blame outside agitators. This is a situation that we have created by our own actions that we have taken. And so we will hear more from Lincoln County because the citizens over there, both of both parties and independents, are signing in a legal process to get 20% of their voters signing that they want to keep their precinct open. So they're doing that in 4 precincts right now, and those signatures are being validated. And under the law, if you have 20% of your voters that sign, you can keep a precinct open and override the decision of those who are monkeying with it. And I will just underscore for you that it's not only Lincoln County, it's Morgan County, 3, 4, or 5 more counties that are taking these steps that will block voter access. In Lincoln County, the election supervisor said, well, if you want to ride to the polls, just call me. There's no process for getting people to the polls when they close down those 7 polls and reduce it to 1 in one end of the county. I will take my seat. The yellow light is on, but I want you to ponder these things in your heart when we give each other so freely advice about not discussing local matters. Thank you.
You have a consent calendar of privilege resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Is there objection to adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. It feels like we're raising penguins in here today. Anybody else cold? Chair recognizes the majority leader. Mr. Secretary, will you please read the resolution?
Relative to meetings and adjournments of the General Assembly and for other purposes, Senate Resolution 382 by Senator Dugan of the 30th. That completes the order, Mr. President.
The chair recognizes the majority leader to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. What I bring before you is Senate Resolution 382. Let me move this away. I understand from some in the chamber that my voice carries. What we have is the adjournment resolution that's put before you. A little bit different this time as it's not cut up into multiple parts. This takes us through day 40. The intent on that was to give y'all a degree of certainty of how the session was going to lay out so that you can make plans, adjust your schedules and stuff, because I know this is a shock to people. This is a part-time legislature, and some of y'all have duties at home that you also have to make sure that you are taken care of. Now, what this does is does put us out on day 40 on April 4th. That's a couple days later than some of our recent day 40. If you look at it, April 4th is a Monday. We could have theoretically done it on a Sunday, but there is a greater appreciation of going ahead and doing it on Monday than coming in on a Sunday to close out day 40. One of the reasons that we're also having to take into consideration this year is because we have extreme staff shortages within the Senate Budget Office and even some degree the Secretary of the Senate's office. The pandemic has affected all of us, and if we're going to do our job here, even though, like I said before, it's part-time, we need to do it well. We need to do it right, and we need to be sure and complete with the information that we bring forward, and we lean heavily on those two agencies to make sure that we do that. So you have the calendar in front of you. I talked with the minority leader yesterday. She assured me that y'all had seen it. So I know that the majority caucus has seen it. And this was about the worst kept resolution that I've seen because from what I understand, it was posted on social media last night before we even voted on it. So I would ask for your favorable consideration to take us to day 40 with this one resolution so that we have a degree of certainty as how the session is going to unfold. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the resolution? The chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing the report of the committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 49, the nays are 0. The resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? The chair sees none. For what purpose does the senator from the 19th rise?
Your President.
State your motion.
Mr. President, I raise actually to serve notice pursuant to Senate Rule 10-1.10b of my intent to move to disagree to the House amendment to the Senate substitute to Senate Bill 334.
Ms. Secretary, will you please read the caption?
House Bill number 334 by Representatives Gullett of the 19th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 6 of Title 15 and Article 1 of Chapter 17 of Title 45 of the OCGA relating to clerks of superior courts and general provisions regarding notaries public, to amend Part 1 of Article 1 of Chapter 2 of Title 44 and Article 4 of Chapter 18 of Title 50 of the OCGA, relating to recording of deeds and other real property transactions and inspection of public records, to provide for related matters, to provide an effective date, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
The senator from the 19th is serving notice to the Senate of his intentions to move to disagree to the House amendment to the Senate substitute to House Bill 334. This chair would like to extend, as a point of personal privilege, for the senator from the 19th to better explain this action as a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to do this. Last year, you may remember on day 40, there was a slightly jovial exchange between the colleagues as we dealt with a bill that really does have important effects to banking, real estate closings, Wall Street transactions, and Main Street transactions, and it really involves something as simple as the notary bill and how notaries in our state are recognized and filed. I want to tell the members of this body, thank you so much for sticking with me. As you know, we had our position on that. The House had a separate position on that. And then in the middle of some of the back and forth that got a little bit muddy and confusing, where I thought there may have been some promises made that maybe others didn't think were made across the hall, and we've worked that out. What I'm asking for now, I'm serving notice pursuant to the Senate rules. Since we're not in the last 5 days of session, you have to serve notice the legislative day before you intend to bring back up a special action. And the President of the Senate, Lieutenant Governor, has been kind enough as to give me an opportunity to explain. That's all we're doing today, is serving notice that on tomorrow, the next legislative day, I will be moving, or actually making the more formal motion here, to disagree to the House's amendment to the House bill, which was what Senate substituted, on that notary bill last year. Again, after we disagree to that, I would imagine that the process would probably be that they would appoint a conference and we would appoint a conference and go forward from there. Mr. President, thank you so much for the opportunity to explain that, and I'll yield for questions if you want me to.
You have questions.
Okay. Sure. Are you? It was.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 56th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the chairman yield?
Yes, I yield to the other chairman.
Thank you. Chairman, isn't it true that you are well-versed in the puppetry arts? Is that not true?
Well, I don't know a lot about art, but I hope I know a little bit about law. And Senator, I just want to tell you that I don't think there's any puppets in this room except for one that I was delivered last year after our colloquial debate on this floor. This is a little puppet that I was delivered later, and the only puppet I know in here is this one, and he's named Ron. Ron stands for Remote Online Notary. We're calling him Ron, and he looks forward to the debate tomorrow.
One further question, if you'd yield, Senator.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that I want to compliment you on your look-alike puppet, and it greatly flatters the chairman of appropriations?
Well, thank you. It costs $30 billion, so I appreciate all your help.
Do you continue to yield?
Sure, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 17th.
Does the senator yield?
To my friend from the 17th.
Senator, did you have to pull any strings in order to get recognized for this service of notice of intent today?
Senator, I want to tell you that that was a good one.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Senator, that puppet, if you'll hold it up one more time.
Yes.
Have you tried to put any product in that puppet's hair and slick it back any? Will that work?
We'll work on that tomorrow. Thank you, Senator.
Do you continue to yield?
Of course, Mr. President. We can go all day.
Brace for impact. The chair recognizes the distinguished senator from the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Will Ron yield?
I'm sure he does. Sure.
Senator, I wasn't talking to you. Ron, do you yield?
He said he yields to the chairman of the fraternity caucus.
I'm going to need to see it.
Yeah.
Is that not true?
I'm sorry.
I need to see Ron talk.
Yeah.
Is that not true?
That's
you deserve every bit of this.
I appreciate that, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I yield, I'd like to remind everyone that the budget has not yet passed. But please go ahead, Senator from the 33rd.
In that case, I changed my mind.
You all of a sudden have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, again, thank you for allowing us to explain just the posture of the legislature, which has sometimes become confusing in what will go on tomorrow. I yield the will, Mr. President.
I'm so glad I extended you the opportunity for a point of personal privilege to explain all of that. Thank you for serving notice to the Senate of your intentions to disagree to the House amendment to the Senate substitute to House Bill 334 tomorrow. And with that, the chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Wednesday, 26 January 2022.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read your announcements?
The Insurance and Labor Committee will meet in Mez 1 at 1 p.m. today. All other committee meetings are canceled for today. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Does any other senator wish to make an announcement? The chair sees none. The majority leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until Wednesday, January 26, 2022 at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate stands adjourned. Have a great day.